I think we should move on to the happy stuff.
We can move on to the happy stuff. It was I mean, this was like, what a terrible exclamation point to such an amazing... This was the best WrestleMania weekend I've ever gone to. And we've gone to a lot now. And I've gone to a lot of shows. This was the best WrestleMania that I've ever gone to. The best weekend of shows. Raw was awesome. The Hall of Fame was awesome. WrestleMania was awesome. Ring of Honor was... you know what's funny is in years past, the independent shows have sometimes outdone the WWE shows. Not this year. The WWE shows were fantastic. And, there were good things. I mean, there were good things on the ROH show. There were good things on the first night of the Dragon Gate show. The last two matches everybody's raving about. I had a lot of fun at Shimmer. But, man, nothing compared to WrestleMania and Raw. And look at this. ABC World News Now covering it as one of their main headlines on their overnight news program. Wow. So there you go. And Brandon here, New Orleans, best weekend of my life, greatest week as a fan ever. Everybody has to attend a WrestleMania weekend at least once. You survived.
Oh, I had a great time.
Yeah. You did exactly what you said you were going to do.
Yeah. I went to New Orleans as a tourist. I ate all I could. I drank all I could. I took in all the sights I could. And I also went to WrestleMania and saw some friends.
Yeah.
So,
and we went on a haunted walking tour. Which was 75% rock and roll.
Yes.
I still liked it.
I think we should take this in chronological order.
All right, go for it.
Otherwise, I forget something. Okay, was your trip to New Orleans uneventful?
Was it uneventful?
Yeah.
What do you mean my trip to New Orleans?
Did you have, on your flight down there...
I see.
Did anything...
An absolute epic disaster. Not like yours.
All right, you go first.
Well, I just... we showed up there and we went to go through security, and all of this just sounds preposterous after talking about the death of the Warrior, but I'll complain anyway. So we were going to go through security, and I was shocked because I got there and there was like no lines. I was like, man, we'll be through this in 30 seconds. So they send me over to a line, and 25 minutes later I go through. Why? Well, it was Let's Train New TSA Agents Day.
Uh-huh.
And so we were in a line where our friendly 3 TSA agents actually proceeded to stand at the monitor, and every single solitary piece of luggage that went through the thing, they had to one by one all agree on what everything was. That right there looks like a comb. Does it look like a comb to you? Yeah, it looks like a comb to me. You're right, it's a comb. What about this? Oh, that looks like a personal accoutrement. Oh, yeah, you're right. So they went through it, and of course, every single person had a bag searched. And it was infuriating. It went on forever. It was it was a trail of tears. And as I've noted many times, I don't know how this happens, but I go through the security. I have got a bag that is full of wires, cables, and electrical equipment. Goes right through like nothing happened. Then I've got another bag that has a small mini microphone stand, and it gets flagged every time. It is surely a knife, a 3-headed knife that I'm going to use to kill somebody. I think that's what they think when they look at it. And every single time I get stopped for that. But not the wires and the, nothing that looks like it could actually be a bomb ever gets stopped. It's only the stupid stuff. So, and then, we had two layovers or whatever they call it, stopovers. And it was a long flight. There was other stuff, but it's
all right, let me tell you about my day.
Important.
As noted, we were flying standby because it's really, 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 really cheap. So we check our bags because it's free when you fly standby. And we had checked right before we left the house. And basically what standby means is if the plane doesn't sell out, you get to go on the plane. And we checked before we left the house, and there's still something like 5 or 6 seats left available. We thought, great, we're in for sure. And then we got down there. Suffice to say, we were not, in fact, in for sure, and we were not, in fact, in at all. We did not get on the plane. You know what did get on the plane? Our bags. So our bags are now on their way to Houston. We are stuck in the SeaTac airport. we are searching for plan B. My first two option was, hell with this, I'm going home. Second option was, hope for another, try to get on the next flight to Houston. Well, Alaska only does one flight to Houston each day, so that means we would not get out until Friday. And in fact, when we checked, that flight was already sold out. So that means the earliest we could have gotten out to Houston on Alaska on that flight would have been Saturday. We called our friend in Alaska who has hooked us up with the passes. She says, what you could do is fly to Austin, drive to Houston, get your bags, and then drive on to New Orleans. And of the multiple bad options at our disposal, this seemed to be the least bad option. Got on the plane to Austin, no problem. Flew down there, got to the Austin airport. We rented a car, and one of the things where I discussed this plan with you first on Thursday or Tuesday, whenever it was, you couldn't believe that I was going to be driving a rental car.
No, I could not.
I don't know why that is. Perhaps you think rental cars are crappy?
Well, more it was that I would have had to pay $500 for a rental car for 5 days.
Okay, I paid much less than that. And even the... I paid less than that. I had reserved a car at the Houston airport. I did have to pay $100 for this car, but it was a 2014 Volkswagen Passat. It was so much better than my actual car at home. As soon as I sat in this car, I just looked around, looked at the dash, looked at the controls, looked at the lights, and I thought, I'm not giving this car back. I'm going to keep this car forever. So the next 2.5 hours were great. Open road driving in a sweet car in Texas, all highway driving. And I learned something on this trip. At least when it comes to freeway driving, people in the South, much, much, much better drivers than people in Seattle. You come up with somebody in the fast lane and you'd zoom up behind them and they would just get out of your way and you'd zoom ahead. Or you'd be in the fast lane, someone would come up behind you, you get out of their way and they would zoom ahead. Everyone just obeyed logically. In Seattle, what happens is if you try to pass someone, first of all, they'll block all the lanes so you don't have a passing lane anyway. Then if a lane does open up and you try to pass somebody, they will accelerate. They don't want you to pass them. It's insanity. So I was doing great on this trip. I knew it was going to be a long day, but I was having a fun time until we got to the Houston airport. For those of you curious, there are two airports in Houston. This is the George Bush Intercontinental Airport. That's what it's called.
Intercontinental.
That's what it's called.
Wow.
And I can pretty much safely say this is the worst place I have ever been. I announced this on Twitter at one point due to my frustration. And everyone who had been there pretty much replied, yep, sounds about right. So here's the deal. We had to do two things at this airport, and none of them were actually catch a plane or go through security, any of that. We had to exchange rental cars, drop off the one I had rented that day, and pick up the one I had reserved for the trip. And, of course, we had to get our bags. Now, because Alaska only has one... Actually, I'm getting ahead of myself. The rental car thing was relatively easy. I had the drop-off for the rental car is complicated as hell, and National and Alamo use the same... I guess they're working together, and you drive around the parking lot. I think I literally did 2 full laps around the parking lot trying to find the place to drop this car off, because a lot of signs saying, Alamo drop-off this way. So you drive around the corner, it says, Alamo drop-off this way. You drive around the corner, and there's sign after sign after sign, but then when you get to the actual entrance, there's not a sign. Eventually, I found it, dropped my car off, went inside to take care of paperwork. That's right. That took about a half hour because I had to try to find the... they had the reservation. They had all my personal info, but they did not have my flight info for my return flight home. And for some reason, they cannot give me a car without that. And this resulted in digging through email and changing passwords and a bunch of other garbage. Oh. And I couldn't do this on my computer because they did not have Wi-Fi in 2014 at an airport. That's finally done. Forgot about that part. So I get in my car. Now we go to get our bags. Alaska only has the one flight. So after like 5 o'clock, whatever it is, Houston time that it lands, they go home. And the airport doesn't have like one central baggage location. This has happened to me before. Your bag gets separated. And what they do is they just take all the bags and stick them in a little side room. And there's somebody who works at the airport who's in charge of this. Houston doesn't have that. So the Alaska people had taken our bags and given it to the Air Canada people and said, watch this, somebody's going to come get it tonight. So I dropped Bridget off at the terminal. You know what? I'm getting ahead of myself again.
Oh my God, Vinny.
I must go on. This is more important than WrestleMania. There's 5 terminals at this airport, A, B, C, D, and E, and if you're just driving around, there's no clue what is at these terminals. So we had to go like 2 or 3 of them before we found the right one. So I drop her off, and then the Air Canada people said, we have to go out on the tarmac for something. So I'm sitting in the cell phone lot. She's sitting at the counter, and we're all just sitting there. Finally, they get back. I go to pick her up to get our bags. Everything in this airport is miles and miles and miles apart, and none of it makes any sense, and no one knows where you're going. And as such, everyone there is just as pissed off as you. So everyone's cutting you off. Everyone's tailgating you. Everyone's trying to zip around you. Imagine being in a crowded shopping mall where every single person there is running as fast as they possibly can. That's what it's like driving at the Houston airport. So I finally got my new car. I finally got our bags, got in the car, and hit the road. 2 hours! A long and horrible 2 hours. And honestly, it was the only bad part of the trip. From there, we just drove on to New Orleans, got there at 5 a.m. and slept. That's my first horrible encounter at the Houston airport.
There's more?
There is more.
Maybe we'll save the other one for next year. How about that?
We'll see how it goes.
The only terrible thing I got to say about this trip, the only bad thing, is that I'll never, ever, ever go to the Superdome again. The bottleneck that we got stuck in for 20 straight minutes where a near riot broke out. And if you think I'm exaggerating, I promise you that there will be people that will go on the board and confirm this because I was in this bottleneck with them. I already have a guy here on Twitter who said the only bad thing about the trip was going to get to the hallways of the Superdome. The worst. This was doom. This is the worst possible thing that could possibly happen to anybody inside a building is to nearly be involved in a riot. And aside from that, this trip was awesome. But because of that, and I was there, and people said this is not something that's only happened today. This has happened before in this building. I'll never go to the Superdome again, ever. Now, granted, there are people that wish that WWE would go back to New Orleans every single year for WrestleMania because everybody had so much fun in New Orleans. But if they do, I'm not going back into the Superdome. You better hold Mania elsewhere. Horrible. Hideous.
So I was in the same crowd, the same near riot. The only funny part about it was there was a guy with a megaphone, and they were making announcements saying, basically, if you guys go to the other side of the building, there are no lines. And no one left.
No, you were in a different thing. You were trying to get inside the building. Mm-hmm. I'm talking inside the building, in the halls. There was an unmoving 20-minute bottleneck. Everybody pushing and shoving. They're screaming at each other. They're getting ready to get in a fight. If there had been a fight there, I mean, it'd have been bad. And it was and the most infuriating thing was there's cops doing nothing. Unless somebody had pulled out a gun, they were just going to sit there and have everybody else do all the work. People chanting, go, 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 shoving each other, pushing. I mean, it was terrible. It was horrible. I've never been anything like that. And it sucked. But yeah, the bottleneck I didn't get in. We got there early. And when I finally got to my seats, the show was starting. It took me over 90 minutes to get from outside to my seat. No stops. Superdome sucks.
That does suck. Yeah, we had a bottleneck outside the building. I will say the guy with the megaphone was at least having fun with it because the crowd started giving him the what treatment, and he was playing along. If you go, what? To the other side of the building, what? You will find, what? There are no lines there, what? So everyone, at least that was fun. So we get inside, and they scan my ticket. Everything's cool. Scan Bridget's ticket. Won't scan, won't scan, won't scan, won't scan, won't scan. And finally, I basically said, look, my ticket's fine. This is clearly not a fake. Just let us in. And she basically agreed and let us go. This was a mistake. Because we got to our seat, and what we found is that one of them had been taken away from us for a big light. So Bridget ended up going all the way back down the 6 levels of the Superdome, where she was one of, I believe she said 50 to 60 she was fine, because she didn't really care about the show anyway, but there were about 50 or 60 pissed off people there. And A lot of them have been moved from the 100 and 200 levels up to the 600 level. So that sucked. And she actually didn't return until during the entrances for the Triple H Daniel Bryan match. So a lot of people, through no fault of their own, missed the first half hour of WrestleMania. Now, the first half hour was just a bunch of talking.
I suspect that those people will have free seats to WrestleMania in good spots next year.
That would be good.
That's what they did that one year that they were obstructed by a tree.
Maybe I'll get them then.
Well, you got to complain. You got to actually ask.
I'll see what I can do.
They're not just going to magically send them to you.
I wasn't sure how that worked. So we ended up getting moved. Actually, and both seats were fine. I actually take that back. Both seats were very good. The first seat was basically exactly opposite the stage. The only problem was that the screens above the ring were blocking the stage itself, and the other seats were more on the side and had a great view of everything. So that was fine. And then we saw the show, and the show was awesome.
Hell of a review.
All right, where are we here? Are we up to Mania already?
I just want to hear your review of Mania since you're already here.
All right. Mania was a hell of a show. You could argue which was. Then we headed out on our way, zipped out to Houston, no problems until we got to the worst place in the world, George Bush Intercontinental Airport.
Intercontinental.
Yeah.
Still funny.
This time we got our car checked in, no problem. We were running very, very late. We checked the car in, went to go check in for our flight, and in 2014, they do not have Wi-Fi in this airport, nor do they have kiosks where you can check yourself in. So you must wait in line.
Gotta be kidding me.
Not making this up. So there was 4 people in line ahead of us, and this line took forever and ever and ever. Finally, someone came up to, a third person came up to random computers and tried to get things going through faster. This third person did not know how the printer worked, so we could not get our boarding passes. Standing there waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. Meanwhile, behind them is the luggage, the luggage carousel deal. And there's just a constant blaring alarm going off, which no one seemed to care about or do anything to fix. So we finally get our passes. Then we have to run to security. And I did, in fact, run to security. We get through security. Line is not too long. Everything's going fine. And I am standing there. Like I say, we're late for our plane. I'm standing in line with my shoes off and all the, laptop out of its bag, pockets empty, ready to go. And we get up to the actual metal detector part, and the 2 people in front of me had apparently never flown before in their life. No idea what was going on, these 2 idiots. This is not the fault of the people working at the Houston airport. It's the fault of the people using it. So they had no idea what had to go in which bin. They had no idea they had to take the shoes off. They had no idea to take the laptop out. They had no idea where everything was supposed to go. Everyone had to be done by hand. And then they finally get their stuff through, and they go through this. They get through the machine, and everything's fine. And then, of course, they get their stuff on the other side of the machine, and they just stand there right where the stuff comes out, putting everything back on, putting their shoes back on, putting their wallet away, putting their jacket back on. Meanwhile, our stuff has been cleared through the machine. We're free to go, but we can't get to it because these morons run away. At last, they step aside. I am able to reach through and grab my stuff, and I threw my shoes on, unlaced. I grabbed everything else in my hands. My belt, my computer bag, I was not wearing my belt, mind you. It was just in my hand. I dumped my wallet and phone in the computer bag, had the boarding pass in my hand, everything else in my other hand, and I ran through the Houston airport as fast as I could. Granted, this is not very fast, but I was booking. A dead sprint. And we were at gate 11A, and I'm counting them off. 1A, 2A, 3A, counting them off. 6A, 7A. Next thing I know, I am at 12A. I look ahead, I see a sign saying 13 and 14A. I look behind me and I see a sign saying 1 to 9A. You will note there are no signs here for 11A. And I looked around. I must have done 3 revolutions. And I bellowed at the top of my lungs, "Where is 11A?" No one helped me.
You're out of your mind.
I was out of my mind. They make the announcement, you have 5 minutes to get to your gate or we will shut the door and you will be stuck in Houston. So I go running backwards, and I finally found the gate where I missed it, literally with like 2 minutes to spare. We made it from New Orleans to Houston.
So how did you miss it, dude?
I don't know how I missed it.
Just walked past it?
I'm moving at such speed, the words all blur together. Yes. Blind desperation. So we did make the plane. We were not trapped in Houston. Our bags made it home. Everything from that point was fine. And we got buckled in, and they're going through the takeoff instructions, and suddenly I just started to laugh. I could not believe we made this flight. It stunned me. It was insane. So that was that, and we made it home, and everything was fine. But that's why the Houston George Bush Intercontinental Airport is the worst place on earth.
The Silver Dome, Miss Hogan called it, is actually a lot worse. You know, I was